Avenatti. Or no, it was Cohen. Cohen was the one who did it. Yeah, Cohen. Yeah, he got sanctioned.
Yeah, okay.
Hi,
Looks like,
everyone.
hold, no, we're not there yet. Hold on a second.
It just
Okay.
said we're being live streamed, so I'm assuming
Yeah, I
we
know. It
are.
just took a minute to get going. So the live stream is going. So why don't we get started as usual? We all ready? I got stuff for the beginning here. All right, here we go. Three, two, one. It's the Three Whiskey Happy Hour with your three bartenders. I had a gin and tonic earlier because I am dehydrated from flying on airplanes all day from Mississippi. More about that in a moment. But hi, Lucretia. Hi, John. What are you guys using to celebrate the end of the week?
The cask of Amontillado.
Right, right. And John, you're still doing a lot of media tonight, so you probably
I
can't
still
enjoy
gotta go
yourself
on
too much.
TV, so contrary to what people believe, I am not drunk when I'm on TV.
Well, you
Wouldn't
know,
it be easier?
But maybe on this podcast, yes.
I think I've told the story before of getting advice from a well-known public speaker never to have a drink before you're doing a public appearance. And it was PJ O'Rourke, of all people, right? A man for whom there was no illicit substance he hadn't tried. Right? He
Well,
was
didn't
like,
he like be smoked? Did he like smoke during things and drink
well, yes, but
during?
smoking is different than drinking. He said, don't drink before you speak. And, he's a guy who hung out with Hunter
Smoking
S.
doesn't.
Thompson, right? So it's,
Yeah, smoking
uh,
doesn't do anything to alter your state of mind.
well, wait a minute. Nicotine is good for that. You know that. You were a
Isn't it
smoker
No,
calming?
once.
not to
Yeah.
alter. No, 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 no. You don't get any kind of. You don't get the effects of inebriation. You don't get hallucinogenic effects. You might get just a little bit
Well,
of
why
a
bother then? Why bother?
because hmm, first you get a kind of energy. You get at the same time you get calming effects from it. My great
Oh,
story about the priest at Lent who's coming back at 2 o'clock in the morning in the worst part of Chicago, middle of winter, and some guy sticks a gun at him, says, "Give me your wallet." So he opens up his overcoat and the it sees the robber sees his collar, and he said, "Oh, Father, I'm so sorry. I had no idea you were a priest. No, put your wallet back. Put your wallet back." And the priest reaches in for his cigarettes and offers the robber a cigarette. Because you're nervous and it calms you
Yeah.
down. That's the point. And of course, the punchline is, it's supposedly a true story. The punchline is, "Oh, no, no, no. I gave those up for Lent." John
Okay.
doesn't get it.
I know, of course not.
no,
Even
no,
though he
no.
even though he went to an Episcopal prep school a million years ago.
Don't do Lent.
Yeah. All right. Well, a
I know,
couple,
but the point is robber versus smoking. Never mind. If I
but
have
there
to explain it to you,
there is research showing that nicotine sharpens your concentration. I think that's
maybe.
right.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I
But
think there
it's not
is.
something that you feel.
Well, okay. I don't
No,
know.
no, no, no. I mean, it's not mind altering, is what I'm trying to tell you. You don't get that kind of anything from it. I smoked for a long time. I know this.
Yeah. Well, okay. All I know is when I see people smoking, especially Europeans, I said that just looks so great. I wish it wasn't so bad for you.
No, I do too. Or stunk so much. It's a,
Yes, right. Yeah.
anybody who's ever watched us on YouTube knows that I have a very hard time keeping my hands still when I talk, and having a cigarette made it very simple. I'm just
Well,
gonna
I don't know.
say.
I think someday we'll look back and say it'd be barbaric. Like we used to take weeds and burn them in our mouths, and for centuries, it seems bizarre actually when you think about it.
I don't know. I don't know if I've told the story on our podcast or not. Lucretia, you can tell me. But I remember seeing Alan Bloom at Claremont paired with James Buchanan right after Buchanan had won the Nobel Prize. So here you have the famous Nobel Prize guy and Bloom, the now monster best-selling author. And Bloom was making fun of the Chicago guys. He ran circles around Buchanan on this panel. It was amazing. But it's like 1988, I'm going to say. You could still smoke in the lecture halls in Claremont at that time. And
Yep.
but Buchanan was talking about, Bloom was doing his usual flamboyant routine about, when I was in Chicago, I used to go listen in on these seminars with Milton Friedman and Frank Knight, a really famous guy earlier than that, who Bloom was very close to, and Hayek and all these people. And he says, they always say to me, Bloom, if you're so smart, how come you're not rich? And Bloom pauses, takes a big drag on his cigarette, and says, well, I am now. The whole room busts up, right? I highly recommend it to everybody. Waving a cigarette around, ashes flying everywhere.
I
It
will
was
tell you
great.
that more than once, Steve, I bummed a cigarette in class from Peter Schramm.
Oh, I'm sure. Yes, right. Because Schramm could never be without a cigarette. And sadly, that's partly why he
Yeah, I
may have
know.
passed away at
And
age
why I quit 40
68.
years ago. So,
Right, right.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, a couple of little tchotchkes to show you guys, one just for you and then one for listeners and viewers, all 10 viewers maybe. I got from United Airlines today my official 2 million mile plaque to put up on my shelf.
Wow.
2 million flight. This is stupid. I have too many of these things. I don't like
Wow.
tchotchkes like this, but it's still nice they sent me this thing. And but more important than that, we've been talking about this, and I did a sample press run of the 3 Whiskey Happy Hour coffee mug. And there it is.
Oh, I don't like it. It's too
You
colorful.
don't like it's too colorful.
Yeah.
Well, it's got you don't like the
black and white.
You want black. Well, all right, but I think I'll say this about it. It is it's not a decal, which means it's dishwasher safe. A lot of coffee mugs are decals stuck on and they won't last 10 times in your washing machine. This is actually, imprinted on it. And well, I'll tell you what, John, I'm going to post this up and see if we get any orders.
I thought we had like a black and white sketch kind of thing.
Well, that was for a hat, maybe.
That garish multicolored. This this multicolored dream coat or something from some bad 70s Broadway musical.
Lucretia, whose side are you on here? I mean, what is wrong with John here? This is a great logo. That's fantastic.
I don't know if I like it with the red on the inside because it doesn't match, but
okay.
Anyway, I think it probably doesn't matter. Either you're gonna pick it up because you're
like loyal. It's for. I won't send you one then, John. The heck with you.
I want there to be some like small secret symbol that only people in the know will understand what.
Well, now, okay, I'm toying with that idea too. I mean, we could have more than one. You could have just a little thing that says 3WHH. The people who know, right? And that's like a secret handshake. So, all right. No, you're not.
Okay, so you got your 2 million miles. By the way, the U.S. Army awarded me the what's it called? Meritorious Public Service Award for something incredible service to the U.S. Army. And
during a government shutdown, this happened. That's important. It means you're essential, right?
It was very interesting. It was Wednesday. And a lot of all the green suiters there, the salad suiters were obviously there working unpaid, but they had gotten paid on Wednesday. But all of the civilians and the commanding general told me that I said, I can't believe you guys are doing this now. Why didn't you just wait? He says, it's too important. We had to give it to you right away. So anyway, I was trying to share the picture, but it doesn't seem to work with the way you have things set up. So I'll send it to you sometime. No worries, no worries. But anyway, the interesting thing is the medal is like a meritorious service award that a soldier would get. And the way the medal comes to me, I get a nice plaque and everything, but it came in a nice little box with a medal for my, when you see the generals and all of their one of those, one to go on my dress blues and one to go. I mean, absolutely nothing that I ever, I'm not in the Army, so I don't actually wear Army uniforms, but that's what I got 3 different medals for the purpose of the different uniforms that I don't wear. Anyway, so there you go.
Okay. Well, so I thought what we do this week is put off a couple of headlines till later in the show and talk about something that I think is a sensation that may have some legs. And also, I was in Mississippi all week. Let me just say, give a shout out to the University of Mississippi and the Declaration of Independence Center. By the way, many of whom are listeners to our show. They're a fantastic bunch. I had a great time. I gave a lecture series that's going to, I think, become a book soon called Against Mediocrity. That's the working title anyway. Now, Lucretia will mock me right away saying never mind. I won't finish that slur. Anyway, so I wasn't following the news that closely this week. But what has been on my mind for 10 days now is this article by Helen Andrews called The Great Feminization that appeared on Compact. And there's a backstory to this very briefly. Helen was until recently the editor of the American Conservative magazine, and she was fired That magazine's gone weird, and we'll leave that story for another time. But I think she's very talented. And Lucretia, you remember we interviewed her a couple years ago at the Philadelphia Society about
On
her
her
book.
boomer book.
Yeah, about her book, Attacking Baby Boomers, which I love because I'm a self-loathing baby boomer. And I think she's very bright and very talented. And the article really is the adaptation of a speech she gave, John, yeah, you may not follow this, at the latest National Conservatism Conference. Now, most of those speeches, they put them all up on YouTube, and most of them get 1,000, 2,000 views. For some reason, her speech, The Great Feminization, went viral and is up to something like 150,000 views. So that's clearly totally different from and they have famous people of that, J.D. Vance, Peter Thiel, but Helen has been the big breakout star of this last meeting. So the Great Feminization, you might guess what the title is. It's an attack on feminism. And how is that new? Because, people like Christina Hoff Sommers and others have been doing this for 30 years. But let me share with listeners, and I will post a link to her compact article, but let me post to listeners just a few sentences from it, and then I want to toss to Lucretia because, of course, the chief advocate for repealing the 19th Amendment, this is her bailiwick, right? But the point is, she's saying, people say wokery is, cultural Marxism, all this leftist dogma, and she says that's all true, but she says, I think it's actually feminism, and not feminism, the ideology, but too many women in high places. She's that blunt about it. Okay. Here's a few samples for listeners that I think will convey the whole article. Early on, all cancelizations are feminine. Cancel culture is simply what women do whenever there are enough of them in a given organization or field. Everything you think of as wokeness involves prioritizing the feminine over the masculine, empathy over rationality, safety over risk, cohesion over competition. Wokeness is not a new ideology, an outgrowth of Marxism, or a result of post-Obama disillusionment. It is simply feminine patterns of behavior applied to institutions where women were few in number until recently. And here, John, I'll call on you for this next part because it's very germane. A much more important tipping point is when law schools became majority female, which occurred in 2016, or when law firm associates became majority female, which occurred in 2023. And she goes on through other fields like medicine and corporate management. And then John says this: the field that frightens me most is the law. All of us depend on a functioning legal system. And to be blunt, the rule of law will not survive the legal profession becoming majority female. Lucretia, I'll let you have first bite at all this.
Well, I actually think that her strongest argument is in the area of law, and because she goes on in a little more detail and talks about how the rule of laws, to put it oversimplified, been replaced by feminine empathy, and rather than colorblind, blind justice. And the rule of law carrying the day. It's empathy. I have to feel sorry for this criminal because of the root causes, and on and on and on. And I think there's a lot to be said for that observation. And I do think that it is also very, very it bodes for a lot of danger, I think, for the entire criminal justice system and the law in general. So I think that's a really strong one. Before I go on, let me just let John speak up and see if he has any thoughts on this, or if he's too afraid to say anything because he still has a
law professor, right?
No, I mean, I wasn't persuaded by the article. So for two reasons. One is, I'm not sure. I mean, you guys would know the literature better than me, but I don't know if I agree with the idea that women all think one way, and not all, but in general as a group is her point. Women think in this sort of non-rule of law way, and men think in a rule of law way. I've met, if you look at the justices on the Supreme Court, I mean, you have some women on the Supreme Court who today who probably like balancing more, but there's a woman in the majority who doesn't. And I don't think, and certainly these divides were on the Supreme Court when they were all men. I don't think they're, I mean, but she referred to a book that was allegedly what it was about like primitive men and said like men were warriors and women who fought and tried to take resources from the hostile environment, and women were at home and fighting each other over resources. I just don't. I think that's a thin reed to make these broad generalizations that men and women think so differently in a professional setting. That just hasn't been my experience in the law. And then the second thing is, suppose she's right that women and men in law or these other professions do think fundamentally differently. Uh, it still doesn't. It could be, what you call, they call it an independent variable problem. There could be something
Hmm.
else causing changes in institutions, and so maybe the law changed in a certain way first, and then women started going into law because the law had changed already because of something else. If I was to attribute these problems, it wouldn't be because of gender. I think it would be because of race. I think it's been this corrupting influence of affirmative action in particular that changed law schools and changed the nature of the legal profession. Because um, if you are determined that you to have a certain percentage of minorities or any groups in law school, regardless of their relative merits in terms of testing, grades, and so on, then you have to start eliminating grading systems and you have to make the classroom less tough, because the tougher it is and the more grades you are, then it's going to be more obvious who should be there and who shouldn't. And I think that process is not gender related. I think it's a corrupting effect on that affirmative action and its attack on merit has had in the law. That's what I saw. Not that there were more women in my law school classes that caused a lot of my colleagues, for example, to give up on teaching class in the Socratic method. I still teach class in the Socratic method. I mean, people are shocked when I describe, I call on basically one student for the cases for a whole class and I ask them questions the whole time. Or people seem shocked. That's the way it was when
Yeah,
that's the way law
right.
school was when I graduated. I don't think it was the presence of women that changed most colleagues to start using the, you know, lazy undergraduate method you two favor, which is just lecturing to the students and going on and then let
Oh
them
yeah,
ask
because you've been
No,
in
questions with
so many
five
of our
minutes left.
classes. Oh. But I don't necessarily disagree, but I think you're doing the same thing that she's guilty of, which is attributing all of these things to a kind of single uh, causation. And I actually think it goes deeper than that. I think that all of these things are effects causing further effects, but I mean, I think it's that the rule of law was destroyed by say, what's it called? Critical legal theory, the idea that
Hmm.
there is no rationality to the law, that there is, that it's impossible, for instance, for a judge to be uh, either in deciding a case or deciding some kind of appellate issue to be rational and objective and all of those things. It's just impossible. That according to critical legal theory. And once you have conceded that, which of course is an outgrowth itself of progressivism, then it becomes very easy to adopt things like affirmative action and critical race theory and feminist empathy. That part I had to agree with her, whether again it's a cause or an effect. Um, it's one of the reasons why I have a really hard time stomaching women most of the time. There's a few that I can. They're wonderful. Your wife, for instance, Steve, Janice Rogers Brown. There are others, but these touchy feely women who watch the Hallmark channel.
Oh, The View.
The View, yeah. And so there's something to what she's saying. And there's also something to what she's warning against. Again, Steve's going to post this. But when she calls it that it was done by social engineering, that this sort of initiative was feminist initiative was forced on us by social engineering. I think it's kind of the opposite, that social engineering had these goals and feminism was one of the things that helped it get there. Um, but I do think that her analysis of the workplace is not altogether inaccurate. Think about it. You really can't have pinups, and
Oh, right.
you can't tell dirty jokes. You can't. What you can't do is create an unsafe environment or a hostile workplace. I've told the story many times. When I was a graduate student, more than one professor had a slightly insulting, slightly affectionate, both nickname for me. Usually having to
Trixies,
do
right? They called you
Trixie,
Trixies.
Trixie. Oh, and one called me Bright Eyes. Just things like
You mean
you could
like the
never.
monkey and like the monkey in the movie? They were like
What monkey?
like not
Planet of the Apes. You're
affectionate.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
That's not affectionate. That's insulting.
Well, there might, and I'm sure that in many cases it probably was intended to be insulting.
Yeah.
My point is that I guess I could have gone crying to the provost or the dean or something and said, "Oh my God," but I'm a little tougher than your average female. In case you didn't know that.
We were
Um,
wondering,
you were
it was an
wondering,
open question,
but
Should
I
we
remember when I got to.
should we be kicking you off the podcast now if I take our article seriously?
Yes, yes, you should. No, because I'm much more on the manly side than our good friend David French is.
Oh, I'm coming to
I'll come
him.
back to
Yeah.
that. Let me come back. Let me give you one other thing. When I was in graduate school at Davis, my PhD advisor, if I was going to get a cup of coffee, would not allow me to bring him a cup of coffee.
Oh, is that Larry Peterman?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Why?
Okay.
Absolutely. Why? Exactly. Why? Because that would have been uh gender, outdated gender roles, and it would have been advancing some notion of female inferiority and blah blah blah.
Hmm.
Eesh. And that was 40 years ago. So it's not like this happened yesterday, but it is different. You mentioned Charles Murray earlier. To me, Steve, one of the most amazing things that I heard in person from Charles Murray, again, probably 45 years ago, was talking about the legally defining and punishing sexual harassment and all of the difficulties attendant to that, which she talks about as well here too. The idea that females believe everyone who says I've been sexually assaulted has to be believed, et cetera, et cetera. But Charles Murray said something really interesting. He said, there's always been women in the workplace. They've always been subject to the
Oh,
bores and
right.
the crude guys, the guys with no class, et cetera, et cetera. What happened in the old days? They didn't go to HR and say, "I'm being sexually harassed." They went to
Yes.
their brother, they went to their father, and the
Well,
father showed up and punched the guy in the face, and then it was over with.
oh yeah, this is. Oh, sorry.
That's
I
what
got to.
Charles Murray said. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Steve.
well, I mean, actually, this is what my
Well, I
mother and
don't.
mother,
Do we really?
my mother and my mother-in-law both said the same thing. They didn't have to go to boyfriends or brothers because in my mother's case, she didn't have a brother, just had a sister. My mother was in the workplace, as was my mother-in-law in the late 40s, working for lawyers or something, and they would occasionally get frisky and pinch you on the bottom. And so what they do, you can't run to HR. They slap them, and then it never happened again. Now, I mentioned this. I remember I got in trouble for this 10 years ago when I was at Colorado. And I said, the problem with all these bureaucracies is, if there's some bad behavior at a frat party over the weekend and you run to HR on Monday, that's a bad remedy because then now it becomes a bureaucratic, drawn out thing. I said, women should just slap some guy who's out of line. And I was on an NPR station. That was another mistake I made. The eruption was unbelievable. I had faculty saying, this crazy conservative professor is advocating violence. And my response was, I thought self-defense was a basic principle of Lockean liberalism. Have we lost that completely? Right. But anyway, that's where we are. That was the old remedy and it worked. And
Look,
now that we want to
but
make it some kind of process, it doesn't work worth a
I
darn.
know, but would you rather have so one, I think David French has a good point, which is
No.
it's got to be the case that our society is better off with the large number of women we have in the workplace today and in the, opportunity, the higher levels of the jobs they can have than it was, pre 1970s. I mean, I just
Oh,
think that's undeniably better for our society that half the population can now be fully part of the workplace.
It's
And
not
two,
well, wait.
for.
you
Well, all
don't
right.
think
Go ahead.
so?
Let
Go
John
ahead. Go
do.
ahead.
Let me
Yeah,
You
go
John.
have
ahead.
John.
Go ahead.
ginormous under. You have You have underutilized resources in our population. If half the people are going to be subject to discrimination of various kinds, it keeps them out of different jobs. I mean, it's just better. It's more productive for society for everybody to. So that's one. I think he's right about that. Well, I want to hear your counter case. But
Yeah.
two, if you are going to start having large amounts of women in the workplace, then you are going to have a lot more friction between the sexes. And I'd rather have rules that might be legal rather than people slapping the crap out of each other left and right. Because
Okay.
you're just going to have larger numbers of these interactions, unfortunately. And you're going to have more rules.
Well,
And I don't think that, relying on minor violence I mean, maybe it worked when there were less women in the workplace, but when you're
all
going to
right.
have 50% of the workplace women, I don't think that you can run a system that way.
In both
Well,
cases,
let
you have
me.
to change behavior. I'm just going to say that. I'm going to let you
Okay.
finish, Steve. But in both cases, you have to change behavior. Which one works better? And that's the
Yeah.
question. You've changed people's behavior. I never accused my PhD advisor of treating me like a sex slave or anything like that. But at the same time, he was already completely conditioned to the idea that you can't let your graduate student get you coffee because then you'll be a sexist, patriarchal pig. Change behavior, how best to do it. Go ahead, Steve. I'm sorry.
Well, so first of all, so John, I don't think anyone disagrees with your basic point that we now have a lot more talented women in the workplace whose talents are not used, that maybe their highest and best use. However, I think the real cause of that was not feminism. This is all girl power, and this whole business has grown up as a feminist revolution values. No, it was the washing machine that made this possible. I actually mean that literally.
Microwave.
Well, the washing machine's a metaphor, right? Look up someday this wonderful video by this Swedish demographer named Hans Rosling, and it's about the washing machine, and it's about how it liberated women, and that's what made it. So, by the way, if you point out that it's technology that has made it possible for women to enter the workplace to a feminist, they go absolutely berserk out of their minds. They hate that idea, right? So that's point number one.
Steve,
And
before you go on,
sure,
can I just
right.
illustrate that point? I used to tell my students reading the part in Jefferson in the Notes on the State of Virginia, where he says, "It is civilization alone which has brought women into the enjoyment of their natural equality." And I would tell them exactly what you just said, which is before technology, before civilization, and that, there's more to it than just the technology part, but I'll keep it to your analogy. I can come home and cook dinner for my family after working a 10-hour day. Why? Because
Dominoes. No. Oh.
No, no.
well, I mean, actually cook a dinner because I don't have to go kill a chicken. I don't have, and I don't have to feed them at 4 o'clock in the, there's all of these things.
It's not just technology though, because there are lots of countries today which have access to that technology, don't have the same level of women in the workforce that we do. With the same amount of opportunities and ability to be professors or deans or podcasters.
Affirmative action for women.
Well, now wait a minute, John. That's an interesting point. If you go to, let us say, more patriarchal societies, say in the Middle East, like Pakistan,
or
India,
ones like South Korea and Japan, although Japan just had its first female prime minister.
Right.
But if you talk to people in those countries, which are, technologically maybe even more advanced than ours, they have very few women at the upper echelons of their society still, because the society's organized that way.
This is going to get us too far off on a tangent, but I think if you look at places like Pakistan, you'll find that smart, talented women go into the sciences. They don't go into gender studies. And there's something to be said about all that. That's a longer story.
I agree with that, though.
Yeah,
I agree with that, but I think it's a combination of both. And I just don't see what country would you rather be than us in this world then?
Well, think about that some.
That's I think
that's
it's
not really
obviously
the question.
better here.
But let me go to.
It has imperfection. Like it has imperfections, but which country is actually better in terms of balancing having more women in the workplace? Right. I mean, we have maybe we went too far with wokeism, but I think the basic rules are good for everybody, men and women. And it's better for us.
Let me point to the second aspect. Let me point to the second aspect of why I think the story is important and why this debate. We can go back to this, by the way. in future episodes. Here's my analogy. I'm baiting Lucretia here. And see, John, I think this is starting to remind me of Ed Meese in the late 80s picking the fight over original intent. Now, if the left and the legal academy had ignored him, it might have gone away. Instead, you had Supreme Court justices and law reviews and prominent people freaking out and saying, oh, this is terrible. We can't. And that ignites a debate on original intent or originalism that the left lost. So it's not just David French. Wait a minute. Hold on. Let me set this up.
What is the debate?
Well, here's the point: is her article has elicited a huge response from the left, and then David French, who we say is a conservative, he's in the New York Times. His article is, "We have met the enemy of civilization, and it's women." Hold that for a moment. A lot of smart lefties like Matt Yglesias and others saying, "No, this is terrible. This is ridiculous. This is where the right is going. This is awful." A couple of people have actually chimed up and said, her article could have been more substantive. And here's some journal articles with the typical peer-reviewed statistical analysis to show some important statistical differences between men and women that are relevant. So the point is, I think she's touching off a debate. So there's David French. And I'll end with this and let you take it from here. Lucretia got a little ahead of me on this. She provoked, David French, she is pretty good. That's a good slip. David French's column, "We have met the enemy of civilization, that's women," it provoked Charles Murray to a tweet. And Charles, he's a pretty mild-mannered guy. Here's what his tweet said: "I am still waiting to read something by David French that doesn't irritate me. Even when I agree with the substance, the sanctimony drives me nuts." Amen. That's my insert. Continue with Charles. "In this case, I wholly disagree with his take on Helen Andrews." Charles brings a lot of statistics and learned social reflections to these kind of debates. I think this is the beginning of something. I hope it's the beginning of something. And it could get wild and woolly. But who thought that this little speech and article?
Look,
you don't? Okay.
All I know is law. So, the legal profession, all that will. In this period where this has allegedly been happening, originalism has arisen. Right? If this started in the 70s, this is actually during this period where women were allegedly weakening standards in the law and introducing all this huggy, touchy-feely stuff in the law. Actually, that's the same period where originalism has kind of driven out all this stuff from the Warren Court, which is where a lot of these attributes happened. And we have a conservative Supreme Court. We've overturned the Harvard, Harvard overturned, right. Bakke. Right? We overturned Roe versus Wade. I mean, I don't understand where all this corruption is occurring when, to me, during the same time period where this is all allegedly happening, I think the legal profession, from our perspective, has vastly improved from the way it was before.
Well,
I don't get it. What do you want to change it back? What do you want to change it to?
You brought up Amy Coney Barrett. You brought her up as an example of someone who's not some whiny crybaby feminist.
I didn't say whiny crybaby feminist. I just mean she doesn't seem to fit this picture of non-rule of law women.
Okay, remember what she said about January 6th? Excuse me. I take it back. About George Floyd, that she and her 8 children held hands, cried and prayed because they were all so empathetic about what happened to George Floyd. If that is not,
what would she? But I mean,
he was a felon.
He was. What happened?
I'm sorry that a drug-addicted felon, violent criminal died an unfortunate death. I would certainly didn't discuss it, holding hands with my children and cry about it.
Well, but Lucretia, John has a bit of a point here. I had to count these things up.
A reaction.
Well, no, there are a lot of great originalist female judges. Our friends Edith Jones, Alice Batchelder. There's Janice Rogers Brown, right?
Remember, she says that. Helen says that, it's just like, I'm a better shot than you two, even though I think men are mostly better shots than women are.
Wait, you've never, that has not been proven.
That's because you're too
there you go. There you go with your touchy-feely, non-fact-based reality.
There you go. Because you are too afraid to challenge me.
Well, I just believe in automatic weapons. You don't have to be a good shot. You
I,
just spray everything with bullets and
I
you'll hit
think
it.
originalism is a
Uh,
reaction to this stuff. It's an attempt to say empathy has no place in a courtroom. It might have some
well,
place in a pardon, but it has, and maybe a judge at the end of the day looks at a woman who uh, lit the house on fire when her husband, after he'd beat her senseless, got because he was drunk, and she lights the house on fire and burns him up, burns him to death. If the judge wants to have a little bit of empathy for a situation like that, that's not what I would call
well,
feminism.
let me
But
restate the thesis and then move on to another topic, which is I'll put it this way. My thesis is she's touched off a debate that may go somewhere. And second,
This is why I don't think so, because I don't see what is supposed to change.
well, all right. Let me
Like, so in the legal
let me
profession, what would we change
well let me
if you
do
agreed with her? You would like say we're
well.
going to have quotas on women in the law
No,
schools, and we're
how
going to
about we go
reduce
back?
women
have not
hiring and
have
law firm
quotas.
Well,
associates.
you
No, I mean,
mentioned it,
I
John.
don't get
We
it.
go back to the aggressive Socratic method of classroom teaching, which a lot of not just women actually, but the men who've been feminized object to. But the second point is this is an argument that you couldn't say 5 years ago, and now
Oh
you
no, I've heard
can.
people argue about this in the law for a while now because it was a big deal
Well,
when women became a majority of the law schools, and people do talk about it, but
yeah, but now it's
Well,
breaking
and
out into
her
the open.
none.
her
Um,
opening salvo. Remember what that was? The Summers making the comment that there's, some actual
Yeah, right.
biological differences between men and women. And what's the reaction? It's not somebody pulling out their MedCat, MCAT scores, or this is my research, and it's, oh my God, I almost fainted. Oh, I was so upset. Oh my God.
Yeah,
That is
well,
just a perfect microcosm of modern academia,
right.
feminine academia.
Well, let me
I'm so upset. You said I wasn't equal.
wait till we get our AI parody to later, John. Let me end it this way. For listeners who don't know what Lucretia is referring to, Helen begins the article by recalling the firing of Larry Summers for saying, was it 20 years ago now, that there may be a difference in aptitudes and dispositions about math and science between men and women. That is statistically true. And for that, the Harvard faculty voted no confidence, and the board of overseers, the board of governors forced him out as president. I'm not sure that would happen right now. Maybe it would. I thought Howard Summers was kind of a coward for surrendering so easily, but
But I'm not sure
I
many people
think,
would say it either.
well, he wouldn't say it again, nor will a lot of other people. But now maybe people will. We'll see. All right, look, let's have some fun with other stuff because there's some fun stuff in the news this week. Not so much about issues and legal issues, John, but first of all, well, I don't know. We want to spend a lot of time on this, but last weekend we had the great No Kings rallies, and I want our team to have a No Parliaments rallies as a response. No Kings.
no
I mean, I just thought it was
democracy.
silly. No, it was something. I don't know. I mean, you have any guys have anything you want to say about all that spectacle? It's just the usual protest that Trump is president, and so what? But
They all
still,
looked
No
like they
Kings
were
is
going to a
weird.
Joan Baez concert.
Okay, that's good, right? Um, but more interesting to me, and I guess there's a tiny legal angle of this, is the way people are freaking out about Trump's construction of the ballroom at the White House.
Yeah, I find that so bizarre.
Isn't it? I just,
I
it's
don't understand
It's
why people are so freaked out about it.
they're just going
It's
nuts.
I think it's a shutdown, to be honest with you. I
Really?
really do.
No.
Even though that's not always the perspective that the anti-ballroom left is bringing out, I think it is A, to distract attention away from the shutdown, or to try and make the argument, because all the polls now say that Trump's approval ratings are up, that it looks like the Democrats are going to end up actually being the ones blamed for the shutdown. They're trying desperately, but it's not working. People don't really feel sorry for someone whose Obamacare subsidies are going to triple because they recognize what a disaster Obamacare was in the first place. And I think it's because here's what you can do. You can lie about it, as the left always does, and say, "Oh, in the middle of a shutdown when people aren't getting paid, Trump is spending $200 million on a gold ballroom." I just because he wants to stay in power and he's not leaving in 28 because he's building himself a gold ballroom. And I think that they're just hoping against, Chelsea Clinton had the unmitigated gall to come out today and say that Trump is desecrating the White House.
Yeah.
Really?
Really? You don't really? Does she not know what went on?
That's great.
Yeah, right. Oh
Yeah,
my
that's
God.
great.
Right.
What kind
I
of a
have to
bubble do you
say, I
have to live
think
in?
it
Hmm.
seems to me a sign of weakness because if this is the issue of contention on the part of the left, then they're really not prepared to debate policy,
Yeah.
right? They're just like it's almost like a sign like they're giving up if that's the kind of thing they're really making their case on is because we're not
You're
gonna.
absolutely right.
I think someone said like after it's finished, no one's gonna remember. It'll
Yeah.
probably look much better.
Not only that,
It's
but
a
for
more
God's
functional White
sakes,
House. Yeah.
how many times has the White House been renovated?
Yeah. A lot.
Many, many
This
Right.
may
Yeah.
be
times.
the
I mean,
first time,
those
if I'm
wings
not
weren't there
mistaken.
before.
Right.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
East Wing's
Right.
only been there since the 40s.
Yeah.
This may be the first time where the entire thing was financed by private donors, including Trump himself.
Yeah.
It's only $200 million. If you're a billionaire, it's not that big of a deal. By
You
the way,
know,
there was a billionaire
I
who I
think
have to
it's
just.
like as usual, they're getting ripped off by the contractors. I mean, I could do it for 10 million. Come on,
Don't get ahead of
250
my
million.
Babylon Bees, John.
Jeez, wow.
well,
I mean,
I mean,
just give that to Marco Rubio to do too.
I won't right now go through the reasons why, but there's actually a good logic for needing a bigger event space at the White House for
Oh
state
yeah, it
dinners and
totally
other
makes
things.
sense.
And Trump's absolutely right about that. But other people thought so too. They've improvised by putting tents, but if the grass is wet, the women's high heels. It's just a big problem. And
It's awful.
yeah, and
Security's much more difficult.
correct. That's right. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, all of that.
I did 20 years ago get to go to a state dinner, and they're pretty small, intimate affairs because the White House facilities are not big enough to have big crowds. And sometimes you want bigger crowds for those things. So, okay. Well, all right. So that's kind of silly to watch the intensity of it.
I think he's just doing it because of the former Doge employee that got beat up, and he needs a place to fit everything. I'll just leave it at that.
Well, I do. As one of you just said something significant, which is, look, all the polls show that the Democrats' strongest issue is healthcare. They kind of own that issue. And maybe it's true that Obamacare premiums will go way up without extending the Biden subsidies that were reckless to begin with. I think I'm being a policy wonk here. I think Republicans are missing a major opportunity and or responsibility to go on the attack and say Obamacare has failed. We need to start over again and have real reform. But I've always had this will sound, Lucretia, like something John might say, which is I've long thought for years, just the way politics falls out for decades. And let me finish both parties here, that only Republicans can fix healthcare because they're the party that is more competent with all the market-based logic you would need to have a real healthcare marketplace. Okay, that's if Democrats will let them. Right? And that's a big problem with our gridlock in politics. The reverse is also true. Only Democrats can fix entitlements like Medicare and Social Security if they want to, which I'm not sure they do, and if Republicans will let them, because Republicans will be against, well, in the case of Medicare, tax increases, because the Medicare tax has always been too low from the very beginning. And it's okay. I'll just stop there and say that to me has always been the political landscape of these things. And Republicans ought to go first and say, we want to fix healthcare. Are you with us or not? And then you blame the Democrats for blocking healthcare reform that would work. I will say one more thing to annoy Lucretia. The guy who actually had the right idea on this was John McCain in 2008, except it wasn't his idea and he never could explain it because he got it from Douglas Holtz-Eakin, a very competent policy wonk. But we ought to go back to that. And I'll stop there because it gets wonky. But anyway,
So,
I think Republicans are missing a huge opportunity right now.
I
Go
read
ahead.
something interesting this morning to take what you said a step further, and this was the premise of the article. It was a Real Clear Investigations kind of thing, but it was about how MAHA, Make America Healthy Again,
All right.
was the key to Republicans maintaining the House in 2026 and perhaps the Senate, and that if they could get Republicans in congressional districts to embrace Maha. Do people say
Yeah.
Maha?
Well,
Okay,
some do,
Maha.
right?
Okay, the same way that Trump and has embraced it, because the Maha moms out there are the new soccer moms, and that this particular it's not monolithic in what Maha means, but some skepticism about vaccines, overdoing vaccines, artificial ingredients in foods, junk foods, overprocessed foods, lack of exercise, too many medicines for made up conditions, all of those things, pesticides growing in the food. The Maha movement doesn't necessarily join on all of those things, but the fact that Trump is paying attention to them, the fact that RFK is out there trying to do something about it, that this could actually give Republicans, back to tying it into what you were saying, Steve, the opportunity to take the initiative on healthcare and say, we're about making America healthy again, not just about paying more and more and more and more for useless medical treatments that make people sicker. And so it was an interesting perspective. I don't know. There's a lot more subtlety to it than what I just gave it. But if Republicans could actually be seen as the party that cares about the health of Americans, and you'll notice whenever trolls like Mark Kelly come out with their nonsense, I'm trying to use big girl words today, and not usual adjectives, that Republicans don't care about Americans' health care. Yeah, this isn't about health care at all. It's about more money to those medical health insurance companies who drew up Obamacare in the first place, got exactly what they wanted with it. They want more money to insure Americans. It's not about health care. Nobody's getting any less sick because of Obamacare these days. And if Republicans would just run with that, they could abolish Obamacare. John was shaking his head, yes, that needs to be done. And they could actually figure out ways to make America healthy. So there.
Hmm.
It was okay for
Maybe
me.
there's an interesting study out, right, that showed not by any partisan people, but just scholars who showed that all that increased in spending and Obamacare didn't improve health outcomes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we've wasted
Gotten worse.
trillions of dollars,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
the money that's at stake with the lockdown is just extra subsidies going beyond Obamacare that were just to be short term because of COVID.
Yeah.
And right there, I don't know what I think of. I mean, I don't really trust Robert Kennedy and the Maha stuff, but that's, I think, independent of, can't we just go to the American people and just say this has been a policy failure, wasted trillions of dollars? And I think the political support is there. Remember that Trump only came within one vote in the Senate of
John
getting
McCain.
Obamacare overruled, thanks to
Yeah.
John McCain,
Right. And who was that
unfortunately.
vote? Right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, at least in 20, right, that's 2017 and 18, you had just one vote short of a supermajority to get rid of Obamacare.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just, but unfortunately, it's like those other entitlement programs. Once the middle class is getting subsidized with these government benefits, it's hard to uproot them. I mean, isn't there like studies which say there's only like one or two tiny programs, entitlement programs, that have ever been undone by Congress? Every time Congress
Yeah.
creates ones, it just gets everyone addicted
Right.
to free stuff, which is not free. And
Yeah.
it's politically impossible to get rid of them. And that
Right.
sounds like what's happened with Obamacare. It's probably what Obama intended all along.
Of course.
Well, yeah,
I,
that's
I think
right.
it
The
was
old,
hoping it would move even further in the direction of universal
right.
single payer.
You want it to fail. Is the Cloward Piven strategy? It's been famously called for years, perhaps. Let's do this. Let's move to our Babylon Bee segment of the show, because our
Wait, the show's
AI.
over already?
No,
Oh
no,
my
hold
gosh.
on, hold on. Let me keep going. Our AI parody segment we've been closing with is actually a separate topic of its own. It won't take long, but
Oh.
there's an interesting wrinkle to it today. So that's
Okay.
why it'll still be a regular length show. So, Lucretia, what are our Babylon Bees
Okay,
for the week?
before I get to the Babylon Bees, I've been saving this for you, Steve, since this
Uh-oh.
morning. I've been cackling and rubbing my hands like this. So,
Uh-oh.
somebody Michael Lind,
Oh, yeah. I know
writing in
Michael, right?
Unheard,
Yeah.
says, uh,
Turn to the
I'm gonna
mic.
start- oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Let me move this over so I can read it. Then Plenty of other grave parallels have been drawn of late with the First and Second World Wars. Yet, 111 years after the first began and 80 years after the second ended, perhaps it's time we dropped the analogies. That
Oh,
3-decade cataclysm will surely never be forgotten, but when it comes to thinking about and making foreign policy, these conflicts provide few, if any, lessons of history that are of value in today's world. On the contrary, these parallels, whether drawn by historians, pundits, or policymakers, are likely to do more harm than good as they seek to impose anachronistic patterns on the realities of today.
well, this won't be my first rodeo with Michael Lind, who I do know a bit and have tangled with sharply before. Did I send you guys my letter about Sean McMeekin?
What idiot said that? I don't know who that is.
Michael, you don't know who Michael Lind is? See, God.
I don't waste
Anyway,
time
Steve,
thinking
Steve, you
about
have to
people who
admit-
aren't smart. See, that's
Yeah.
The really disappointing thing was you didn't make a single analogy today.
I did too.
And
I did
did
make an
you?
analogy to Meeson, original
did.
intent.
yeah.
you're right.
He
You're
started off. He kicked off with the
Right.
analogy.
Well, I
Gosh.
know I saved it for the middle, but I'll have to see the whole piece, and then I'll
Yeah,
have
I'll
to,
send it to you guys so you can see
So
it.
he's saying,
Yeah,
so his,
I
wait,
just
wait,
made
so
me
he was
laugh.
saying we shouldn't make analogies to World War I and II. What an idiot.
Yeah. Well, by the way,
I took it out of context. So
well, I'll go read it, but it's from what
Yeah.
you gave me. It sounds pretty bad. I can't imagine the context is
Yes.
going to
it
help.
was
us
about
understand.
appeasement. And
Oh, well,
anyway.
he's a lightweight on that. Because never mind.
all right. Sorry, that was
think
totally unfair to spring on you guys. But
I think
again,
didn't I send to both of you guys my my response to Sean McKeegan that has not been published yet, and so listeners won't know what
yeah.
I'm talking. Okay,
Yeah.
well let's hold that for now because when it comes out,
that
which
when it publishes.
Okay.
yeah, when it comes
Sorry.
out, that'll be a big deal. That's okay. I
Back
didn't
to
know
the
about that, so I
Babylon
want to know
Bee.
about it. Yeah, good.
next, No Kings protest to end by 4 p.m. so everyone can get home in time for Matlock. This is my personal favorite. Worse and worse. Plattner also has a Nickelback tattoo.
Oh,
Context for
I
that,
don't know what
Steve?
nickel-
yeah. He's the guy running for the Senate in Maine, a Democrat who
I don't
apparently
know
has
what
a
the Nickelback tattoo. I mean, I get
Well,
that he has Nazi tattoos.
yeah, well, he's running for the Senate as a
It's a
Democrat in
meme.
Maine, and he has a Nazi tattoo. And Nickelback, John, is yet another of the many blank spots in your cultural knowledge. But we'll let that go
Yeah,
for now.
It's a meme
You know, you
that
can't put.
that,
You
like
don't
the
have
worst
space for
music
everything
ever.
upstairs. You got to prioritize.
That's true. The
I
Louvre
mean, you got
announces
so much stuff going on about Taylor Swift upstairs, Steve. You have time to think about important stuff.
The Louvre announces they have installed a Ring camera.
That's good.
I thought you'd like
Right.
that.
That's good.
Trump. Oh, sorry. White House construction crew finds 1,357 more cocaine stashes.
Right.
Democrats enjoy their favorite pastime of holding all white rallies.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Where's the one? I got to go back to the top. Sorry, the really good one. Shoot. It was, sorry, I've lost it, but it's basically Trump is stopping deportations until the ballroom is constructed.
Well, that's why it's going to be so
That's pretty good.
expensive. It takes so long.
No. Right. All right.
Okay. There's all sorts of ones about the Dodgers, but I don't want to get you two going on that, so I'll just let it go.
Okay.
And Steve AI us to death.
Well, let's interrupt the normal flow of things, John, because I don't know if you followed all this, but I had a person email me the other day, a person I know real well, and said, "Hey, I'm trying to find your article," and he gave a title, and the date was 1998, and I thought, I don't remember that title, and I looked for it, and I can't find it either in my own archives, on my old hard drives that I have, or on the internet, and so I finally wrote him back saying, by the way, the date's wrong. I wasn't working for AEI in 1998. Could this have been an excerpt from something? Could it have been a transcript from a panel? He says, "Oh, no, it came up in an AI search for your work on the environment." I thought, in other words, another AI, not fabrication, but invention. So as you know, John, there have been these several instances lately of judicial opinions at state courts usually that got out with phony case citations, cases that don't exist. And just in the last few days, I've heard or seen on Twitter and elsewhere several law professors, people you and I know, and Lucretia know, who said, I keep hearing about law review articles I've written that I've never written that AI have generated. So there's something going badly wrong here with all this AI stuff. That's
Some
all
of these scholars are probably doing better, or probably better off with this mistake because their productivity would go way up.
Well, that's right. It might
You know
be
what
better
that's
quality,
called,
but
Steve, right?
what?
It's called hallucinations.
There, though that's
That, I mean, that's the actual
yeah,
technical term when AI
really,
produces, when it makes something up that doesn't exist, which is actually, I mean, they're getting a little bit better over time, but
yeah,
yeah, they're called hallucinations when you have
yeah,
faulty
okay,
facts, faulty whatever it might be.
right, okay. Well, that's kind of preface to saying that I asked this week Grok. I moved on from ChatGPT to Grok, and the prompt was produce a satire of Lucretia in the style of Three Whiskey Happy Hour. And what it produced was really pretty boring and not very good at all. But it gave a note, and it said
What an
this.
insult.
Well, no, wait. There's it rescued itself when I gave it a different prompt. So stay tuned.
Okay.
But it say the note. This will convey some of it. Note: this satirical article is written in the style of Lucretia, the sharp-tongued, quick-witted persona from the Three Whiskey Happy Hour podcast, known for her biting humor and unapologetic takes. Well, all that's true, but kind of uninspiring. So then I went back and said, not satire, produce a parody in the style of Lucretia in the Three Whiskey Happy Hour, and it produced a transcript of an actual podcast, and it's a lot better. I'll just give you two samples from it, and I'm jumping in right in the middle. Lucretia: oh, Steve, you're darn right. I'm itching, and it's not just because John's wearing that hideous tie again. Seriously, John, did you pick that out of a law school lost and found?
I would never say that.
Well, and the subject was about
you said that about Steve's ties, but not my ties.
Well, but then the made up subject was a proposed Department of Meme Regulation, and says, so John, now hold on, Lucretia. The legal argument here is that memes can be a form of speech, and regulating them could fall under the Commerce Clause or national security. Misinformation, foreign interference. Lucretia: oh, spare me the law review lecture, John. Okay, so it goes on like that. It's pretty good, I think. It's and then again, the notes on this, the show notes. This one's a better one, right? So it is tone, content, something else, style. Tone: Lucretia's style is bold, sarcastic, and unafraid to take swings at both her co-hosts and her targets. She is quick with a quip, but grounds her rants in deep skepticism of government overreach and a love for individual liberty. So I kind of like all that.
Steve, you never actually,
because
it's not bad, but you didn't include it because you weren't going to be there when we had our, no. It's okay. I'm not trying to insult you. I'm really not. I had AI produce a short whiskey happy hour between John and me.
I remember, right.
And it was,
yeah, it's the kids.
But before that, I actually had the transcript produced, and the transcript was based upon the question of John and me discussing whether or not Trump should go ahead and make South America the 52nd state,
right.
Because we were going to be going to a conference with our friends from Latin America and South America, and it's actually quite funny. So maybe you should put that one in at the bottom too, Steve, if I can find it again and send it to you.
Okay. Anyway, John, I think we will wrap there and let you go find a tie from the Lost and Found in Law School for your TV.
I know where did I get that from? I mean,
I would never say that, John. You're excellent.
Pick which one I'm going to wear on TV tonight. Which one looks?
Those are
actually one of them. This one does look like it was from the Lost and Found. That's the one Steve would probably wear.
That is a good tie.
Steve wears like weird stuff, like yellow shirts and orange ties. Like
Steve does.
Yeah, I can't go down that route.
Do you know what I used to do? This is going on too long here. I used to buy a box of 50 ties on like eBay or somewhere for like $15. And I'd get a box of ties and I'd throw out 45 of them, but 5 of them would be pretty good. And that's how I acquired the very few Donald Trump ties that I have.
Steve, why don't you just do that for everything? Why don't you just buy like,
you can't,
like 50 oranges and throw them all 45 of them out?
Mr. Lucretia hit that moment in life where he said, I'm never wearing a tie again. Mr. Brooks Brothers threw away or gave away almost all of his ties. He kept two.
Oh, I would take some of those ties.
See, that's
Oh.
Yeah,
just, you know.
I don't know. Some of them were Jerry Grateful Dead,
Jerry Garcia ties. Hey,
Jerry
those are good
Garcia
ties.
Yeah, they're nice. They're very
I
nice.
have a bunch of
they are
those.
good
But no,
ties,
wait,
Steve.
the
They
two
are
that he
too.
kept,
You are banned from
two-
tie wearing.
that he kept were both Trump ties,
Right.
which he's
Oh
been
my
wearing
God.
for years.
Trump's
So-
ties are so ugly. I mean, come on.
they're
Oh,
red
God,
and they're
this is awful.
blue. How
Yeah.
can they be ugly?
But they're like they shine. They're shiny. They're clearly not made
They're
of silk.
silk.
They're
All right,
silk
you
colored.
guys,
So-
it's time for
Okay.
us to say goodbye to our
Goodbye,
long-suffering
everyone.
listeners.
Thanks for joining us.
See everybody next week. Have fun, John.
See ya.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye.
Stop recording. And I don't know if that stops